But first of all, we welcome from the Kingston Frontenacs forward Ethan Werek. Ethan, the last time I talked to you on this program, you were heading into the draft and you were drafted by the New York Rangers. Talked to you before that draft happened. Since then, you've had another year where everybody wanted to talk to you in the OHL. You've talked to Sportsnet. You've talked to guys in New York. Are you a pro at these interviews at this point? Is it no issue at all for you now?
I wouldn't say a pro, but it's getting easier, but it's a lot of fun each interview.
Is there a single question I could ask, though, that would throw you off at this point, or have you heard them all?
I think I've heard them all. Yeah, probably all of them, but
okay.
We'll see.
Should I say goodbye now, or should I still just give it a shot and see if I can ask you one you haven't heard yet?
Try to surprise me.
Okay, I'll give it a shot. All right, Ethan, let me start with just looking at the last few games. We were talking a little bit about this off the air before the show. Two of the craziest games that you've probably seen in your time with the Kingston Frontenacs. Of course, losing that 5-goal lead over the Oshawa Generals and responding by coming back from a 4-goal deficit against the Plymouth Whalers. With all that craziness, with it seeming that this year no lead is safe, no matter what team has it, are you guys maybe looking forward to going into a game where it's tied going into the third period?
No, hopefully we'll be winning, but yeah, definitely some crazy games, a lot of high-scoring numbers, but I think we just have to get back to the basics, and we did that in practice this week, and it was again crazy games, but coming out with 3 out of 4 points isn't too bad.
No, obviously a great result in the end, but can you explain what happened in that Oshawa game? Is there any simple way to explain it?
I really can't. They came out, I think they got a goal with like 30 seconds into the third, and I think we just were way too comfortable. Everyone says a 3-1 lead is the hardest lead to keep in hockey, but I think any lead is because I think we were 7-2 or whatever it was. We just were way too relaxed in the dressing room before that period, and it's good that these things are happening early in the year because we don't want that happening March and April.
No, absolutely. And you mentioned just kind of feeling a little bit relaxed there. We saw the interview from the second period. Eric Branson spoke with the TV side and said something that, hindsight's 20/20, of course, but he said the Oshawa Generals are starstruck right now. They don't know what hit them. Obviously, they did know what hit them because they were able to come back and force overtime. But was that, as you sort of mentioned there, maybe a good thing to get sort of a wake-up call for the team?
Yeah, I didn't know he said that, but Joe, we were playing well enough that during that the first 2 periods that we were dominating that game. We weren't getting very too many legitimate chances, and we were playing the hockey that we're capable of playing. And if we put a game together where we play that for a full 60 minutes, there's no reason why we shouldn't be a top team in this league.
And great as well that even when that's not the case, you're able to come back as you guys did against Plymouth. It was sort of talking to you about this a little bit before as well, but what happened with the team in that game? Because things looked, honestly, it was like one of those bad games from your first year with this team where obviously the team had plenty of trouble. It kind of looked like that early on, but there was a difference that turned things around near the end. What is that difference with the team?
I think that just that confidence that we have that we know that we can come back from anything. We have probably the most skill in the OHL on our team. So we had that confidence, and we had a couple power plays, some big goals. Quine had a real nice play, and that kind of got us rolling. So it was a real good comeback. Unfortunately, we couldn't finish it, but again, we should never have been in that situation at the start. So we're just it's good that's happening right now. So in the later months, we'll be ready for a full game. Was there something that you noticed? You mentioned Alan Quine there. Of course, had a bit of trouble to start the year, and then really came on fire in that Plymouth game. Was there something you noticed that was different with him in that one? He's getting healthy. He hasn't really been 100% so far this year, and he took some a couple days off to rest, and he looked healthy in practice the day before, and he just I've told numerous people he's probably the most skilled player I ever played with. With his hand, the stuff he does with the puck, is just incredible. So he's gonna be a star player in the next level, and this level he just he's healthy, he's gonna get going, and he'll be a big part.
Speaking with Ethan Werek of the Kingston Frontenacs. Ethan, of course, the big thing for you, being an NHL draft pick of the New York Rangers and spending time at camp earlier this year, you've had plenty of time now to sort of understand the differences between the junior game and the professional game. I know you've been asked that a quintillion times, and everyone when asked, what's the difference between the NHL and the OHL? The standard answer is the guys are bigger in the NHL and they're faster in the NHL. Is there anything beyond that, maybe just in the way teams are run, that you're noticing is a key difference from any of the teams you played before you turned pro?
Going to camp, just the how hard it is. Every day you're pushed to the extreme, and you have guys there, Gaborik and Lundqvist and Avery, all these pro guys who've been pro for 10 years who you think, oh, they don't really have to go too hard in the off season. They can kind of stroll into camp, and they take a month or two to really get playing. But it's not like that at all. They come to camp, they do everything you do, with the 3-mile runs, the skating testing, the bag skates, and they're all, they're there, come on, let's go. They're real leaders, and they worked, so hard. And something that I saw and I was really wowed by, that even after all these years, that they're still going that hard, and you can never let up for a second. Like in New York, after I left, a couple days later, they put 2 guys. Tim Kennedy, he was a young guy. He actually just got sent down, and Todd White on waivers. And Todd White, was a star player in the league. Real tough player. Great hands, great scoring. And, he's an older guy, and they put him on waivers. You'd think that he has an automatic spot. So every day when you come to the rink, your job's not for sure. You have to prove, if it's a practice, a team workout, you have to prove that you're the best guy there, you're the hardest working guy there, and you're going to bring something to the team every day, every shift. So that's something I really noticed this year.
And in noticing those differences, do you, in talking with other players in Rangers camp that were in similar situations to you, like for example Christian Thomas in there after being drafted, do you guys sort of band together and talk about the differences you're seeing, and does that help you through the experience as well?
A little bit, but by the end of the day, by the end of one of the training camp days, the last thing you want to do is talk about hockey because you're so exhausted. But we talk about it a bit. But it's good to like guys like Christian and other guys, just being with them for 2-3 weeks in the hotel. There's not too much other to do, but you hang out with them. Go grab food a lot with them and everything. So you get to know guys pretty well, which is a lot of fun.
Yeah. Now you have been asked before what New York asked you to work on while you were back in junior. You said they wanted you to get your defense going basically and keep focusing on that two-way game. Did you feel that from 2 years ago to your second year in the OHL that progressed a lot for you, although of course you weren't able to get into as many games? Statistically you go from a -5 to a +14, but was that a function of you as a player or just maybe the fact that the team improved so much last year?
Yeah, you can't really take plus minuses, too much because it really isn't a telltale sign. But again, our team was much improved, and even to this day still in practice, Doug's pulling me aside and showing me different things. So every day I'm learning something new, and the defensive game is something that I never really was taught until I came to the OHL, and just positioning wise and everything, and when to go, where to keep your body and stuff. It's something I'm learning every day, and I think I'm getting a lot better at, and it's something that I have to be really great at to play at that next level.
And when you talk about learning, one of the big quotes from you after your first year in the OHL, where you went into a little bit of a drought in the middle of the season and really turned on the Jets by the end of the year. And the Hockey News had a famous quote that a lot of fans discussed, where they said that they credited Doug Gilmour for turning your season around. And some people said, well, they weren't sure it was that. It might have been you just getting adjusted to the OHL game. But you said in that article that you agreed that Gilmour had that profound of an effect on you. Can you give us, because a lot of people try to figure out, what specific effect a coach has. Are there specific things that Doug Gilmour's told you, that he's taught you, that he's focused on with you, that you credit for making you into a top-tier OHL player?
Yeah, absolutely. Doug has been instrumental in my improvement in the OHL, and not taking anything away from Larry Mavdy. I love Mav. Mav's an amazing GM. He was a great coach with us. It was just he was just kind of in a bad situation where we weren't a very good team, and the organization had to do something. And it was amazing. Having Doug come in, and in the 3 years he's taught me a lot, and with things like a lot with how to prepare for a game. The NHL kind of have that mindset. A lot of small things that make a big difference. And defensively, not turning away from the puck, and then in the offensive zone, the moves, the little dipsy doodles, through the stick. That's the next level. That's not going to work. You have to use your body and your speed. So Doug's been great with that, and in practice, me and other guys, pulling them aside, and even just showing us, in this situation what could be done. done, and special teams things. So, he played for amazing coaches. Pat Burns, arguably one of the greatest coaches ever, and he was a great player himself, and he has a lot to teach us, and it's great learning from him.
So let me ask you about the way that you developed as a player, because of course there was the whole issue of whether you were going to report to Kingston or not, and during that time you played 1 year in Tier 2 with the Stouffville Spirit, and it's something I've been discussing for a while, the path that players take to get to Major Junior. You look at a guy like Brendan Gaunce in Belleville getting to the OHL as quickly as he possibly could. You of course weren't totally sure which direction you were going to go, but by spending that year in Tier 2, you got regular shifts, you scored 70 points, led the team in scoring. When you look back on that, hindsight of course always being 20/20, if you had known from the start you wanted to go to the OHL, would you have preferred to be a 16-year-old in the OHL on a team that's known for not really playing their 16-year-olds all that much, or did you gain a lot from having that 1 year in Tier 2?
It's a tough question, but I think if my mind was clear right away that I wanted to play in the OHL, 100% I would go to the OHL. If I knew what that path was, just to get involved in the league. You practice all the time, so you're gonna work on your skills, and when you get your opportunities, you have to make the most of it. When I made that decision, I've gone over it a million times. I wasn't ready for I wanted to go to school then, and things fell through, and I have come to Kingston. I've loved every second of it. It's an amazing city, amazing people. My billets are great, and Larry Mavety, Doug Gilmore, just learning from them. It's been great.
So back to the OHL side, you mentioned all the talent that Rangers team has. When you look at all that, and you've got to know, even though your aim is to be on that team next year, it's going to be pretty darn tough because of the amount of talent that they have. Are you prepared for the possibility that, like many Frontenacs, because not many Frontenacs have gone straight to the NHL level, a lot of them have had to work their way up through the AHL, Mike Zigomanis, for example. Are you prepared for needing to work your way up, or are you in the situation that you think you've developed well enough you could crack that roster next year without too much of an issue?
Well, I'm going to the camp this year. My goal is to crack that roster, and my rookie camp, the rookie term, I started off slow, and wasn't playing my best hockey. But by the time the last game at rookie camp and the rookie tournament, going into main camp, I was playing really well. I felt comfortable at that level. I never got into an exhibition game because of I tweaked my knee, but playing the intramural games, I felt comfortable at that level. So. Who knows what would have happened if I would have stayed healthy. I can't look back at that. I'm back here in Kingston. I've played 4 or 5 games, and my goal is to improve, play at the World Juniors. That's what I'm looking towards. Have a successful winning season here in Kingston, and do it when next year's camp's a long time away. So obviously, whenever I go to it, my goal is going to be make that team. But if I have to work my way up, I will. So, but looking at it, I want to be there and be there as soon as possible.